from BBOWT and going to be telling us about the Reconnecting Bernwood, Otmoor and the Ray project and how they're working with farmers to enhance and improve woodlands and hedgerows. So I know this will be really interesting to everyone. Thanks. Over to you, Emily.
Thank you, and thank you, for inviting me to chat to everyone. I hope you do find it interesting. As Jo said, this project is called Reconnecting Bernwood, Otmoor and the Ray. We refer to it as RBOR, which you may have heard. It's a National Lottery Heritage funded project. So we are currently developing the project, and then we'll have to apply for some more funding. And if we're successful, then we'll have 5 years worth of funding from the National Lottery to deliver everything that we've planned. I'll just get straight into it and tell you a bit more about it. My slides aren't moving. Oh, there we go. So this is just a map up that shows our project area. So it's a landscape scale project. So it's about 300 kilometres squared area, and it starts from kind of Oxford, so East Oxford, working our way up to Bicester and then up to Steeple Claydon. We don't quite reach the Aylesbury, so we cut off just before that. But yeah, it's kind of focusing on this landscape in between these urban hubs. So we're doing quite a lot of work with farmers, but also community groups in those urban hubs, but also more rural community groups as well. And so why this area and why is it important? So as you're all probably quite familiar with the landscape, it's got a really lovely mosaic of habitats. So we have kind of a range of pictures here, but kind of going from the left over to the right. So we have the River Ray, which obviously everyone will be aware of, that runs straight through the project area. And this is a really key focal point for us, and it's really important for that freshwater connectivity that runs across the landscape. We have a variety of ponds. So we have down in the bottom left, this is a pond in our Finemere Wood Nature Reserve. We have a range of really lovely woodlands. So we have ancient woodlands in this area, like Bernwood Forest, and then Finemere Woodland up in the north of the project area. We have really lovely kind of hedgerow networks throughout this project area, some really ancient old hedges as well. We have floodplain meadows that are a really kind of old ancient kind of system with lovely botanical species of interest. And we have lots of amazing species that depend on those, such as our curlew. We have the wetlands, so obviously we have, Otmoor, which is a really lovely wetland complex, so right in the middle of the project area. And then we also have our lovely urban green spaces. So it says, one of those pictures, Bicester Town, just highlights one of the important urban green spaces that we have as well, that plays a really important role in kind of connecting that and enhancing wildlife areas in urban spaces. So it's a really important kind of mosaic of habitats. So it's also home to some incredible species. So I won't go through all of these, but we have some really rare and incredible butterfly species in the area, which I will talk about in a bit more detail soon. We have lovely birds. So we have wetland birds such as bitterns. We have curlews, yellowhammers, which are really important farmland birds. And then we have Berks bats as well. So this is the UK's rarest bat species. And we have them in Bernwood Forest and also Finemere. So some really, really crucial species that are quite rare. So it's a really important, landscape in the country. But just like many other, nature in general across the UK, it is very much under threat. So we have increasing development pressures, especially in the north where we have HS2 running through. We have pollution struggles just as anywhere else in the country. So the River Ray is quite heavily polluted, not in the best condition. And we have agricultural intensification that, since the war, agriculture has intensified massively. And we've had, hedgerows removed and just the land, worked really, really hard. So that's had an impact. And then climate change, which is not a unique challenge to this landscape, but it's definitely something that we have to consider. So that's why we've kind of developed this landscape scale project in this particular area. And what are we specifically doing here? So the whole theme is all about connecting, reconnecting Bernwood, Otmoor and the Ray. And we have kind of 3 areas that we're trying to connect. So nature back to nature. So this is thinking about habitat creation and joining it all up and improving the quality of existing habitat that we have. We also want to connect people and nature. So we have in the middle here, we have our blue column, which has a range of different projects within it. So we're looking at increasing access for people, but balancing not to try and increase so much access that we're adding lots of pressure on our incredible wildlife sites. We're trying to connect people in urban areas with nature. We're trying to encourage people to take part in citizen science. We're focusing on trying to encourage community groups to look after their green spaces and trying to get young people involved with Next Gen Nature. And our last theme is all about trying to connect people to each other. So Lottery, they want to focus on heritage and really helping people as much as they do nature. So we're looking at how we can connect people to the archaeology from the past, activism, past, present and future. So looking at the stories in the landscape and how that's kind of shaped the people that live in our landscape today. So it's a really, really big project, lots of threads. And we're not just it's not all just run by BBOWT, so it is a partnership. We have 10 other project partners, and this is a picture of us all on our first project partner day back a year or so ago. So we have, Wild Oxfordshire, Freshwater Habitats Trust, Newt Conservation, RSPB, just to name a few. So we've got some really big project partners with lots of expertise from habitats and community angles. So it's a really strong project, lots of knowledge. So the timeline of our project. So in 2024, we received the funding from the lottery to start the development phase. So from 2024 to 2026, we're working on developing the project, developing all of those project strands that you've seen, trying to plan where we can do our habitat creation work, where we can, connect it all up through the landscape and just, really hash out what we're going to do. And all of that will go into an application at the end of this year. And then if we're successful, we will get £4 million worth of funding from the National Lottery to deliver all of this work that we've planned, and that will run from 2027 to 2032. So quite a 5 years is a good chunk of time. So if we're successful, hopefully we can have a really positive impact. So today I wanted to focus on 2 of our key habitat projects that focus on trees particularly. So the first one is woodlands. So this is a really exciting project that started off with the aim that we want to plant lots of new woodland in the landscape and try and reconnect those fragments of existing woodlands. So starting from Bernwood Forest, connecting up those fragmented pieces of woodlands up to Fine-mere. However, through lots of landowner engagement that I've been doing over this past year, as you can probably imagine, it's quite hard to find farmers who are willing to give over big fields to create a new woodland. And those that are willing to do that, there's kind of better funding schemes for them, such as the UK government woodland creation offer, where they can get long-term management payments for that woodland, which is something that we can't offer. So we've kind of revisited how this project is going to look a little bit, and we think that the best way to try and have impact and get farmers on board is getting trees into the landscape and ensuring there is connectivity, but through different mechanisms. So we want to focus on, could we shift it to orchards and agroforestry? can we still create some woodland where landowners are keen to, but also plant some tree belts? So thinking about strips on the edges of fields that join up existing woodland, thinking about shelter belts along road edges, and then also infield trees. These can really help with connectivity. That kind of old parkland style classic English habitat is still really beneficial for wildlife, and still creates that connectivity that we really want. And then another strand that's really come out through engagement is this need for better woodland management. So a lot of the woodlands that I've been visiting through my engagement are often quite undermanaged. They're dark, they're dense, they don't actually have that much, or not as much benefit for biodiversity as they could. So we're really honing in on this and trying to think this could be a really great opportunity to improve the quality of habitat that we already have in the landscape. So yeah, this has become a really big focus for us. So this is quite a nice little diagram that just shows what a woodland that's really rich in biodiversity kind of looks like. So you have a variety of different structures, you have native broadleaf species, you have a mosaic of habitat, so you have more open swathes, you have rides and glades. It's not all just homogeneous one species, it's a lot more diverse. You have deadwood, and you also have pockets of fresh water. So a lot of our existing woodlands, especially on private land, don't look like this. So you may have heard of the Lawton Principles, where we need for wildlife and habitat enhancement to make a difference, we need bigger, better, more, and joined up habitats. So this is honing in on that better aspect, where we are improving the quality and really enhancing what we already have. And then we can link it up through these shelter belts and also through hedgerows, which are, really good for connectivity. So this has become, a really cool part of the project that I'm quite excited about. So project 2 is our Hedges and Edges project. So as I mentioned just then, hedges are really important for that connectivity aspect. If they're well managed, they are really good habitat for a range of different wildlife. They provide food, nesting, shelter, and for a range of species, they act as ladders almost, and little tunnels to get from one quality bit of habitat to another. So they act as our kind of stepping stones across the landscape. So they really shouldn't be overlooked. And through the project, we want to improve the condition of these hedgerows, as well as connecting them up, so planting lots more hedgerows. But we also want to monitor important species that are reliant on hedgerows. So this picture is a black hair streak. So I'll talk more about hair streaks in a moment, but these are an endangered species, and we only really get them in this small part of the country. So they're a really key species for us that we're really focusing on. So with farmers, we are working with lots of farmers across the landscape, particularly with the Ray Farmer Cluster, who have been really engaged. And we're identifying sites for more hedgerow planting and gapping up existing hedgerows that have been overmanaged, not really looked after, and therefore they've got lots of gaps and holes that reduce their kind of the quality of that habitat for their connectivity. So that's one element. We also want to help farmers with their hedgerow management. So part of that is shifting that behaviour of where they flail their hedges every year and kind of, reduce the quality of the habitat. So we're trying to encourage them to flail less often, but also we need to help restore the hedges to get them to a position where they can rejuvenate. So we are looking to lay lots of hedges and also coppice hedges. And then we also can't ignore that we need better hedgerow margins, which are a big part of hedgerows. So we need, the main structure of the hedgerow, and then a good kind of solid 2-metre wide, even more if farmers can and are willing to give up more for a margin, full of tussocky grass and wildflowers that give that buffer and protect the hedgerow from, arable or, from disturbance, essentially. So we want to try and get lots more of those into the landscape and running alongside hedges. And then we also want to improve other edge habitats. So looking at unused field corners, how can we use those as a space to enhance? So letting the scrub encroach out a little bit, again, improving the amount of tussocky grass, which is really, really great for a range of mammals, which therefore creates a really good feeding ground for owls and predatory birds. So it's not just hedges, there's loads more kind of habitat that people don't always consider when we think about improving hedgerows. So part of this work is we need to survey some of the hedges that we have identified and that farmers are willing to work on. And we need to understand the baseline condition of what we have here. So we've recently just run a volunteering session, training lots of volunteers how to conduct these condition surveys. And we actually have a cohort of volunteers out at the moment doing these surveys for us. So we use the Great British Hedgerow Survey method, which was designed by the People's Trust for Endangered Species. And it feeds back into a national database where we can look at, the condition of hedgerows across the country, but we can link our specific surveys to our RBOR project and then start to build up a picture of the condition of hedges that we have, so that when we start working on the hedges and improving them over the 5 years of the project, hopefully we can compare back to that baseline data to see how they've improved. But the evidence that they collect will also help us pinpoint the key hedgerows that are in the worst condition and where we really need to focus our conservation efforts to make impact. So I mentioned the black hair-streaked butterfly. Now, we're focusing a lot on hair-streaked butterflies in the Hedges and Edges project because this is the only area from here up to Peterborough. We have these clay soils which creates a really important habitat for hair streaks. So this is the only area in the country where we get all 5 species. So we have black and brown hair streak, which are the rarest and most threatened. And then we have the purple hair streak. If you can see my mouse, this is this one here. These are fairly common. And then we have the white letter hair streak, which are, again, quite rare, and they are solely dependent on elm trees. So, as you probably know, elm trees are suffering a lot due to Dutch elm disease. So, because they're solely dependent on elm trees, the white letter hair streak are also in decline. So we want to try and get some more disease-resistant elm back into the landscape. And then we have the green hair streak, which again are slightly more common, and you can often see them in sunny spots along hedge margins, feeding on plants such as bramble flowers and a range of other wildflowers. So yeah, it's a really special area for hair streaks, and because we have the black and brown, which are the most threatened, we are doing lots of monitoring for them. So I just thought I'd quickly pull up some brown hair streak data. So these were surveys that we carried out last winter, and again, this was all done by volunteers. We couldn't do half the work we managed to get done if we didn't have the volunteers. So we managed to survey 14 sites in total, 11 of which were private farms. And across those sites, we found 67 eggs. and the highest count at one site was 12 eggs. So the red dots that you can see are the site locations where we found brown hair streak eggs. And if you look in kind of national databases, there are a lot more records of brown hair streak eggs in this landscape, but this is just our data from this 1 year. But what we're trying to do is get data from private land, because a lot of data that we have, nationally is all from publicly accessible places. So there are big gaps in data distribution on these private sites, which is what we're trying to fill. So this will also help us to pinpoint where brown hair streak colonies are. So in this map, this is the same data, but it's a heat map. So the circles where there are yellow and more deeply red are higher abundance. So we're starting to pinpoint areas where there are a higher population, and the areas where we have kind of more of a less kind of obvious colour. So not describing it very well, but these points down here, if you can see my mouse, they are a lower abundance. So we're starting to build up a picture of where the colonies are and where we should try to improve hedgerows, specifically blackthorn, where we can expand those colonies and expand those distributions. So something that's really exciting is for the black hair streak, which are the most threatened, they are endangered. We are utilising a really exciting new survey method. So we go out at night with UV torches and we look at blackthorn hedges. And the larvae of the black hair streak actually are photoluminescent. So when you hit them with a UV beam, they shine really, really brightly. And you can see them from about 5 feet away, just this little dot glowing in the hedge. So it makes surveying for this species so much more efficient and actually possible. So we're actually starting to build up an idea of where they are. So this once ubiquitous and really hard to find species is now starting to kind of come to light a little bit more. So it's really, really exciting. So this, again, similar, so this is a set of data, but for the black hair streak larvae. So this was the survey that we ran last winter and with the UV. And again, so you can see that we do have quite a nice few areas where they are here in our project area. And this time, because the survey method was quite new and exciting, we had quite a lot more volunteers. So we had 28 people surveying for us. So we managed to survey 29 sites, 23 of which were farms. So again, it's getting that data on private land that was, gappy. And we found 139 larvae, and on one site there were 34. So again, we're really starting to build up this knowledge of where there are colonies and where there are gaps, so where we should be targeting our conservation efforts. So yeah, this is just a picture of all of the volunteers after our training for the UV last year. And yeah, they had a great time. You can see from everyone's face, everyone's really much enjoying it. And we had some really good feedback. So yeah, we have a new cohort of volunteers who have just recently been trained to survey for us this year. And they will be out over the next couple of weeks at night looking for the larvae. So yeah, hopefully we'll get to continually build up this idea of where they are and where we can focus our conservation work. So yeah, that was a bit of a whistle-stop tour of RBOR and then the Woodland Project and Hedges and Edges. So hopefully you can see that we're really ambitious. We really want to try and make a difference and have impact across the wider landscape, focusing on improving habitat quality, connectivity, and engaging people in nature. So yeah, thank you so much for listening. And yeah, if anyone has any questions.